Hi, this is Amy
and Melissa. We are a couple of retired Texas teachers who are CALTs, Certified Academic Language Therapists. We started our own businesses, and now we have a podcast called The Dyslexia Duo.
So join us for our informative podcast, where we'll delve into dyslexia, covering the topics that affect parents, therapists, teachers, practitioners, and anyone who wants to learn more. We'll guide you through everything you need to know, from the first signs to the intricacies of dyslexia curriculum placement and beyond.
This season, we will cover the referral process, what to expect when your child or student is dyslexic, the generational impacts of dyslexia, and how to support those affected.
Come join us. Hi, this is Amy
and Melissa,
and we're the
Dyslexia Duo.
So today we thought we'd talk a little bit about the different levels of intervention or interventionists, therapists, practitioners that your child might have in their setting. So what do you think about that, Melissa? Good topic?
I love this topic. And actually, you and I have both been in this position because we work in schools. So we've been dyslexia interventionists and we've been therapists in schools. So we're excited to share with you what all of these different terminologies mean.
So let's start with what is a dyslexia teacher, or you may even have them called a dyslexia interventionist. Possibly in your district, your setting, your reading interventionist and your dyslexia interventionist may be the same person. They may be doing two different things, but a dyslexia teacher or a dyslexia interventionist is a person who has been fully trained or possibly will be fully trained in a particular dyslexia curriculum that is used by a district, a charter, or an institution like a private school setting. Certified classroom teachers are trained in a particular curriculum, but they're not required to be CALTs or CALPs, which are a CALP is a certified academic language practitioner, or a CALT is a certified academic language therapist.
So we'll talk a little bit about what it means to be a CALP. And that's CALP, and that stands for Certified Academic Language Practitioner. It is intensive instruction for students identified with dyslexia. It is different because it requires 9 months to 1 year of instruction. You must have 45 plus hours of teacher level instruction. And this is with an actual certified, qualified instructor. Then you must also have 60 plus hours of supervised practicums. And this is where your qualified instructor will watch you teach a lesson. Usually it is over a video call. Sometimes they are live, sometimes they are recorded, but you do have to have your qualified instructor watch you teach a lesson that you have made from scratch.
So let's talk about the next level. So when we talk about CALP, that's our practitioner. We're now going to talk about CALT. That's your certified academic language therapist. And this person can provide therapy. It's a little bit of a higher level from practitioner for any program for which they've been trained. Okay. I'm a CALT. Melissa's a CALT. Okay. We can provide instruction in a dyslexia curriculum that is for teachers. We can provide dyslexia instruction that's designed for therapists, right? But I can't just pick up a dyslexia curricula and start teaching it. I have to be trained in it first. I may not have to go to the level of intensity that you'll see with the CALTs, because when you do a CALT certification, it's the highest level of intensive instruction for students identified with dyslexia. And the CALT therapy training requires 2 years. I don't think a lot of people because I'm a CALT QI. I can provide that instruction for teachers. I get a lot of calls. I got a lot of emails saying, I'm really interested in getting my CALT. What do I do? When they hear it's 2 years, they usually kind of drop off the phone call after that. But it's 2 years of instruction. It's 200 therapy hours with a qualified instructor. That means that they're in class with me. They're not doing async work. They're doing synchronous lectures with me, and 700 hours of supervised practicum. That includes the 10 video lessons that they have to do with students, the critiques of those lessons, the various book reports, the various report writing that they have to do, all of it.
If they do get this qualified instructor watching them and the qualified instructor tells them, you really need to make sure that your student knows how to do X, Y, and Z, you have to go back and rework your lesson and teach it again to make sure that that lesson meets that criteria according to the qualified instructor. So it's pretty intense. And it's 2 years of graduate level work because you are doing those book reports. You are doing the research. I had to do a lot of reading the journal articles and then writing reports afterwards. So
additionally, a CALT can support with other instructional pieces because they understand how to differentiate. They understand how to scaffold. And so I may be teaching from a dyslexia curricula. And when I'm training teachers in a dyslexia curricula, I expect them to do it the way I've taught them. But once I'm a therapist, I can take the various pieces and adjust it according to my students' needs. I might even supplement with some additional curriculum pieces from different curricula to help that student understand and reach and get the goals that they need.
So I can give an example of this. I went through my training at SMU, Southern Methodist University in Dallas, and the instruction that I received through them was for the program Alphabetic Phonics and MTA. It was kind of interchanged. After that training, after I received all of my training to become a CALT, I then went on to get additional training to become certified to teach the curriculum, which is the Take Flight. And when I got through all of that, I was able to teach not only Alphabetic Phonics, MTA, I was also able to teach Take Flight. I will teach my Take Flight lessons and sometimes see, you know what, this child isn't understanding the particular lesson I'm trying to convey to them. So I will pull in a piece of information from my MTA training, some of my MTA books, and I will create an instructional piece that will help that child meet the needs that they have to understand the lesson.
Perfect. A CALT and a CALP, these are through ALTA, which is an international organization. But there's another international dyslexia organization that has a series certification, and that's an SLDS. That's a Structured Language Dyslexia Specialist. And the requirements are through CERI, which is the Center for Effective Reading Instruction. And these people who are CERI certified and their SLDS can serve students who are at the beginning, middle, and advanced levels of reading, spelling, and writing instruction. The last thing that you need to know about is QI. That stands for a qualified instructor. A qualified instructor has the CALT certification, but they went another 2 years through an accredited institution, and they have gotten their qualified instructor, which means they can now train teachers to practitioner, they can train teachers to therapists, and they can train other therapists to qualified instructors.
So, Amy, I remember when I was going through my advanced training, you were going through your QI training at the same time. Mm-hmm. And you basically were going through every step of the way along with us as if you were
there for the first time.
You were there for the first time and you were teaching us everything along the way, as if we hadn't heard anything for the first time either. So it was a very intensive program for you as well. And then you had to teach us lessons based on what you had learned from the qualified instructors who taught you. So qualified instructors teaching qualified instructors how to be qualified instructors.
That's exactly what it was. I would watch to see what the qualified instructors did, how they provided those lectures. We were responsible for grading practicums. We were responsible for grading the homework submissions. We were responsible for delivering at least 5 or 6 lectures during the 2 years that we did it. I went through the homework again, right alongside with y'all, underlining things, highlighting what I needed to know, especially when it was time for my lecture, because my lecture was pretty bare boned. I had to provide the additional support within that lecture to flesh it out. Things y'all needed to know
to help us understand.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
You probably read my stuff and you were like, gosh, this girl is so smart.
That's exactly what I thought. She's so smart. Gosh, I don't know.
I need to do a podcast with her someday.
A plus.
Okay, so thank you for explaining those things, Amy, because I tap out at CALT. So I didn't know about the QI and the SLDS, but thank you. Okay, so what is the different types of curriculum? That's what we're going to be answering. What are the different types of curriculum? Okay, so you might have heard OG. OG is like the hot term these days. I see it all over the place in the boards that I'm a part of on Facebook. OG is an approach.
Yeah, it's not a curriculum.
Not a curriculum.
Mm-hmm.
So OG stands for Orton-Gillingham. And the Orton-Gillingham approach is a direct, explicit, multisensory, structured, sequential, diagnostic, and prescriptive way to teach literacy when reading, writing, and spelling does not come easily to individuals, such as those with dyslexia. So you might have heard in one of our other episodes, we did talk about the Orton-Gillingham approach and, who created this. And it was Dr. Orton and Anna Gillingham. So that is why we have the term Orton-Gillingham. They developed this approach to be able to help that brain make the reading connections that they need to make. So it is most properly understood and practiced as an approach, not a method, program, or system. In the hands of a well-trained and experienced instructor, it's a powerful tool of exceptional breadth, depth, and flexibility. So that is what we use when we are talking about the Take Flight curriculum or the alphabetic phonics curriculum. Some of the other curriculums you might have heard that be thrown out would be situation learning, Wilson, BLS, some of those, and we'll talk more about those in just a minute. But those are all following the Orton-Gillingham approach. So don't think that you have to have Take Flight in order to get Orton-Gillingham, because that's not the way it is.
So additionally, and we're pulling this off of the website, Orton Academy. Okay, what is the OG approach? So the essential content and practices that characterize OG are from 2 different sources. First, from a body of time-tested knowledge and practice that has been validated over the past 80 years. And additionally, the second, from scientific evidence about how individuals learn to read and write, why a significant number have difficulty in doing so, how having dyslexia makes achieving literacy skills more difficult, and which instructional practices are best suited for teaching such individuals to read and write.
And it's always focused upon the learning needs of the individual student. So if you think about when I sit down with a student, before I even do any work with them, I do what I consider a baseline assessment. And I check to see where their levels are. And we figure out, okay, this is where they're performing. And then we figure out what they need in order to achieve the highest levels of success. So the practitioners or therapists design lessons and materials to work with the students at the level they present by pacing instruction and the introduction to new materials. They need to master the same basic knowledge about language and its relationship to writing, because again, we talk about that. Letters have a system of recognition. You've got to be able to recognize that this letter symbol makes this particular sound, or these groups of letters together make this particular sound.
With automaticity.
Right. Mm-hmm. And you have to be able to do that, not only to read, but you have to be able to do it to spell. So the students with dyslexia need that explicit instruction to be able to master those skills. They do need more help than just regular.
Yeah, it's not extra tutoring.
Right.
Extra tutoring does not work. And
right.
This is not content mastery. This is not extra tutoring. This is a specific way of instructing our students.
Right. And even if you go to somebody like me after school, I'm not just giving them extra reading support by reading with them. I am actually instructing them the way that they need to be instructed.
We'll be right back after a word from our sponsors.
Hi, this is Melissa with Kids First Dyslexia Services. I am excited to share with you my private practice. Kids First Dyslexia Services is a private practice that specializes in dyslexia therapy. Each one-on-one session focuses on instruction specific to your child's needs in a nurturing environment that develops self-esteem, builds confidence, and fosters a sense of accomplishment, resulting in happier kids with higher levels of achievement. We provide a professional, personalized experience, always putting the child first. We value the relationships with both our students and parents because strengthening skills and overcoming hurdles to achieve desired goals and success is a team effort. For more information, please visit kidsfirstdyslexia.com. That is kidsfirstdyslexia.com.
Hi there. This is Amy Rodenroth, owner of Discovery Dyslexia Services. So tell me if any of these situations are familiar to you. Your dyslexia teacher / therapist has suddenly retired unexpectedly, and you do not have the personnel to fill the space, or you do not have enough trained teachers or therapists for the number of students who have qualified for dyslexia services, and you need a trained teacher or therapist quickly, like yesterday, quickly. Or you need a teacher to provide compensatory services, and you do not have anyone that can provide what's needed. Well, what do? I'm going to tell you what you can do. You can call Discovery Dyslexia Services. Discovery Dyslexia Services can help you with your various dyslexia concerns. We have multiple CALTs who can provide virtual small group therapy. We can also train your teachers in most dyslexia curricula, either virtually or on site. Just let us know how we can help support you. For more information, go to our website at www.discovereed.com. Let me spell that for you. DYSCOVEREAD.com. I don't know, it's a funny name, but we're providing huge services for our dyslexic population. So keep in mind, Discovery Dyslexia Services, covering all your dyslexia needs. Let's return to the show. Well, let's talk about some of the pieces for OG. So we said that OG is an approach, not a curriculum. And we talked about within the OG practice of it being multisensory. What does multisensory mean? Multisensory includes all the senses, basically visual, auditory, kinesthetic, and tactile. 2 or more of those senses delivered simultaneously makes it multisensory. Our kids see it, they say it, they move their large muscle for skywriting, they feel those tracing when they feel it with their hand, all of it.
We ask them to say a sound, watching their mouth in the mirror. They notice what their mouth looks like. They have to discover what their tongue is doing. They have to repeat back what their tongue is doing. And then they have to say the letter. After we instruct that that's the letter T, for example, that makes your tongue go T, they have to repeat it back to us that is letter T, and we have them write it. So it is multiple steps using all those different senses.
Mm-hmm, absolutely. So when we talk about a dyslexia curriculum, so we said OG is an approach. Within most dyslexia curricula that are out there, the OG approach is present, okay? Curricula all have their own differences. Dyslexia curricula all have their own differences, right? So a dyslexia curricula, in addition to being OG based, in addition to being VACT, it's explicit, systematic, direct, sequential, and taught to automaticity. right? So let's talk about some dyslexia curricula you may hear about here in Texas. So one of the big ones that we have is Take Flight. So Take Flight, actually, I was trained in Take Flight right before they put it out to all the districts, right? So Take Flight is through Scottish Rite Hospital. And so Scottish Rite Hospital was first originally using alphabetic phonics. So we have OG, and then OG was written into alphabetic phonics. And Scottish Rite Hospital in the 60s was using alphabetic phonics as a multisensory approach for teaching children with dyslexia. It's a phonology-based program, and it's a systematic approach to establish a link between the alphabet and the phonemes it represents. And it was in a response for intensive instruction with students with dyslexia. And then after alphabetic phonics, there was the DTP program, the Dyslexia Training Program, which was alphabetic phonics, but it was to train teachers quickly and maybe in areas that couldn't send teachers to that training. It was a video program, okay? And then after that came Take Flight. But the grandfather, the precursor to Take Flight is alphabetic phonics. There are still districts out there that use alphabetic phonics, and it's also a curricula, but it doesn't have like some of the scripting in place. So you have to know how to pull in all those various pieces as needed. Same with situation learning. It's very similar to alphabetic phonics. It's got a little more fleshed out to it than alphabetic phonics does.
But the Take Flight program kind of plans it out for the therapist to go through. And what's unique about Take Flight too is you do have to be an academic language therapist to present that to children.
And then in addition to alphabetic phonics, situation learning, Take Flight, you have MTA. MTA was written by Margaret Taylor Smith. I want to say back in the late 70s. Yeah, late 70s. I was trained in MTA back in 92. And because we've had Texas dyslexia law in place since 1985, right? And then we had the Texas Dyslexia Handbook in 1986.
And that was because of Geraldine Tynesy Miller.
Right.
She was a big mover and shaker to get kids the help that they need because of her son. And she really was a big advocate. So we're talking a lot about advocacy lately. And she was a big helper for all of us to help these kids.
Absolutely. So MTA is more scripted than alphabetic phonics was. It's a teacher level curriculum, but you can also train to it to the therapy level. There's subtle differences and amounts of time devoted to it. And it's also explicit, direct, systematic, taught to mastery, all of it. So any of these curriculas that we're talking about, it starts with a grapheme phoneme, and it's very controlled. The next lesson is built upon the previous lesson, and I'm not going to give my students something to read that they haven't already explicitly practiced with me. So that's different than what they get in the classroom. You know, things get thrown at them all the time. I'm not going to give my students something to read or spell that we have not learned directly together.
And that review piece is critical too. They do learn a grapheme. They learn its sound. They learn how to spell with it. They learn how to write it. And then every day from that point forward, we review with review decks that letter and that sound. So for example, they will have been taught I says igloo, is the card. Then they will review that card every day until they're done with the curriculum. And that we will continue to build every lesson, just like Amy was talking about. Every lesson we build a new deck because they get new letters and sounds.
And what I love about dyslexia instruction using any of the dyslexia curricula is 80 to 85% of what we instruct in is regular for reading, and anywhere from 70 to 75% is going to be regular for spelling. Then all those other ones, instead of them having to memorize every word for reading and memorize every word for spelling, there's just going to be a small set that they have to commit to memory, that orthographic processing.
I think about when I see my first grade students bring in their classroom word list.
Oh, yeah.
And they have words that all say the O sound.
They're all.
And they're the letter just O. They're O consonant E rules. They're OUGH.
Oh my gosh. Or OE or OA. Or,
yes.
Yeah.
And they're all combined into one list.
Mm-hmm.
How are we going to expect kids with dyslexia to be able to spell words when they have all of those letter and sound combinations mixed together and they have a hard enough time just recognizing what letter they need to put down?
I'll be honest, I kind of appreciate at least they're trying with a rule than giving them just a random list Monday and not even talking about the words on there, not even putting it into context, not even talking about the spelling rules involved. They just give them the list Monday. They take the test Friday. I can appreciate at least they're trying. Maybe they don't have the knowledge there yet, but at least they're kind of trying with the O page.
Yeah. I had the most success with my students who would get a specialized spelling list from me that went along with the patterns that we had learned in my class. So I would work with the teacher. We would come up with a list that would suit her needs and suit the needs of the student. And it was a wonderful way to help them feel success in their own class with their spelling. And it also taught them the rules. And they had really good success, not only with the spelling, but also with their reading. It developed their reading faster.
Yeah. And additionally, in our area, if we're talking about dyslexia curricula that you might hear about in Texas, we have Take Flight, we have MTA, we have alphabetic phonics. You may even hear about Wilson. I've not been trained on Wilson, so I can't adequately speak to it, but it is also OG based and it's multisensory. It's VACT, all the descriptors that you need for a dyslexia curricula, and basic language skills by NIHouse. NIHouse is an excellent resource. I'm not trained in anything but the teacher level curricula pieces from NIHouse, like multisensory grammar and the color shape of language and all of that, but they have. Go on there and look. So it's neuhaus.com, not the chocolates, because if you do that, you'll come up with NIHouse chocolates sometimes. But for dyslexia instruction, they have some excellent pieces in there. And some of the resources are free.
Free to anybody.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, they do have a really great program there. And we have a mutual friend who has been trained in NIHouse, and she loves that. It does require a deep and intensive understanding and should not have services with an instructor who does not have that level of understanding. Right. Just like all the programs.
Exactly. Across the nation. So what I liked hearing is that every state has some kind of dyslexia legislation in place. Now, what it is going to vary from state to state. It may be that they do a dyslexia screener all the way to dyslexia placement, dyslexia remediation, dyslexia accommodations. But let's talk about dyslexia in public and charter schools. Private schools, a whole different animal. But a lot of times private schools try to keep up with what's going on in public and charter. But at least in a public and charter school, dyslexia falls under special education if they're receiving services like remediation or a dyslexia curriculum, right? But it could fall under Section 504 if they're receiving accommodations. When would a student with dyslexia only receive accommodations? This could be a student whose dyslexia is just mild, and they don't need the remediation piece. This could be a student that has finished with a dyslexia curriculum and continue to need those accommodations, especially when they go on to secondary or college even. So whatever they had in place their senior year, if there's special education for their accommodations and modifications, when they go into college, that changes into 504 and they receive those accommodations in order for them to be successful in the college setting.
You talk about 504 and accommodations, and I know that this is going to be another podcast too, but just to touch on, it's important for people to understand that children who have dyslexia and have been receiving accommodations all throughout school, need to make sure that they are having documentation of said accommodations if they want to use those accommodations in college. So I've had students who are getting into their senior year and getting ready to go to college, and they come to me and they say, well, they need to make sure that they have accommodations for college. And it's a wonderful thing. They've told me because they do have all their accommodations on a 504 plan that they were able to get those accommodations. Sometimes the college asks for more information. And like I said, we'll go into that a little bit later, but it is important to document whatever accommodations that child has needed all throughout their career. So keep your documentation as long as you can.
Right, exactly. So let's talk a little bit about legislation across the nation. So every state has some kind of dyslexia legislation. Either they require a screening, except for Hawaii, keep in mind, so every state but Hawaii, they require a screening or pre-service, in-service, intervention, something like that. Dyslexia policies also exist in every state, meaning they have legislation, procedures by law. The district or the state recognizes the IDA definition or the state definition or has a dyslexia specialist, except Hawaii. Every state in the nation has some sort of screening policy, except for Hawaii, California, or Alaska, Utah, South Dakota, Wisconsin, Illinois, Pennsylvania, New York, and Vermont.
So you're telling me some states don't have a screening policy to screen for dyslexia?
Yeah, at this point. Yeah.
So this is something we will want to share with people.
So, Texas just went to a screening policy, I want to say in 2018, something like that.
Yes, it was around that time.
Yeah, 2018. And so in Texas, we screen all kindergarten students at the end of kindergarten and all first grade students middle of first grade. Now, it doesn't matter if these first graders were screened in kindergarten, they're going to be screened again. And they use different type of ways to assess the needs of these kids for the screening. A lot of people use MAP data. There might be some other ones. Dibbles. Thank you. TPRI was making a little bit of a comeback.
That was for a while.
Mm-hmm. One thing when I was in a district, when I would talk to 504 teams and RTI teams and all that about looking at the screening content, it's not just at the numbers, but you've got to do a deep dive as if you're looking at a dyslexia referral. Right? Mm-hmm. You need to see if there's a history of dyslexia in this family. How long because all of these screeners are online for the most part. How long did it take that child to answer that question? Did they change their answer multiple times? Those are all huge pieces to consider.
Well, some of them are standardized too, which I believe they should be standardized. Mm-hmm. Otherwise, how would you know all of the answers to those questions you had? And if they don't show up on the screener as having dyslexia, that does not mean they don't have dyslexia.
Right? I know.
Yeah. And I think that school districts need to be aware of that and keep that in mind too. And I think that's more of advocacy on our part and other people who are working in this field to help school districts understand that.
Absolutely. Most states have some sort of intervention policy, except of course Hawaii, Alaska, California, Oregon, Montana, Utah, South Dakota, Wisconsin. Okay, most. It's kind of, you're seeing more white appearing on this map, but there's quite a few states that do have intervention policies, but probably, I'm not counting it right now, but a good third don't. Quarter to a third.
So if they don't have an intervention policy, the parents really should be reaching out to get assistance elsewhere.
Yes.
And that's where you reach out to somebody like me or like you, Amy, get the private therapy from either a therapist or a practitioner that might be able to help you outside of school.
So outside of myself and Melissa, maybe you're in a different state or maybe you're in a different area, though. Virtual therapy does exist. Where can they look to find a therapist or a practitioner in their area?
Well, they can go to altaread.org, and that's ALTAREAD.org. And that's where you can find a practitioner or therapist in your area. And ALTA stands for the Academic Language Therapy Association, and that is our certifying body. They certify us nationwide. So thinking back to the beginning of this podcast, we talked all about how we had to go through all of this training, 200 hours, doing all these demonstration lessons. And then we had to sit for a national exam. And the exam tells us whether or not we passed the qualifications in order to get certified through this national organization.
And I don't know about you, but when I took it, passing was 85.
I don't remember a score, but I remember I passed. So I was thankful for that.
Yeah.
It was very stressful. It was not something that, at least at the time I took it, I don't feel like there was a lot of study guides out there. And that's what Amy offers now. She offers study guides. And you do that online too, right?
I do a 3-hour study session for those people getting ready to take their practitioner or their therapist exam through ALTA. We go over, I don't know the answers, and I always preface that. I don't know what's going to be on the exam, but I can tell you what you should know about. And we go through that, and we've tabbed with the 8 domains. We've tabbed, well, at least 6 of the domains in our Birch book, and we go through the different questions that could occur. I don't know the answers, though. I don't know what's on the exam. So I always preface with that.
Right. And those are good things to keep in mind as you are getting ready as a parent to find somebody. Keep in mind that the people who did go through all of the training are really the gold standard for instruction for your child, because they do have that knowledge base, not only from the qualified instructor who taught them what they needed to know, but they also developed their own learning by doing the research and writing the reports about what they learned, as well as interacting with the students themselves with their clinical teaching hours, writing their own lesson plans, and doing the demonstration videos.
And keep in mind, your practitioners and your therapists, they're trained in multiple dyslexia curricula. So they have a wide scope of understanding of what could, every child exists on a continuum. So they're going to know, okay, this is working with this child, but maybe I'm going to pull in this piece to support them and to help them with that. And if you've got a practitioner or a therapist, this is someone who has invested in their career and they have a heart for this. And so they're not walking away from this.
Right. And it's not cheap.
No, it's not.
It's not something that you can just decide to go pay like $50 and go through this training. No, that's very true, Amy. It is a big investment.
Absolutely.
So we hope that this really helped you understand a little bit more of the lingo. I know that us as therapists and teachers in general tend to talk in acronyms. And we just hope that maybe this helped you understand a little bit more of the lingo and understand what your child might be walking into this coming school year, what you might need to know to advocate for your child when you go to these ARD meetings or the 504 meetings. And please let us know if you have any other questions. Follow us on Facebook. We are on Facebook, and we have a cute little logo that is a brain with 2 Ds inside of it, which I think is cute because the brain looks like it's wearing headphones, in my opinion. So look us up. We're called the Dyslexia Duo Podcast. I'm sure you already know that if you're listening, but look us up on Facebook and share anything that you want to share, and we will be happy to do research and answer any questions.
Yes. And share our podcast with your parents. If you're a teacher, share the podcast with your friends, share it with anybody who you think this could be helpful for. And we love to hear your feedback. We absolutely love to hear your feedback, because sometimes Melissa and I are sitting there going, what are we going to talk about? We know what we want to talk about, but we aren't sure
what you want to hear.
Right. So we would love to hear from you.
And we're doing this for advocacy. We're doing this to help kids. We're doing this to help our communities. So
absolutely.
Thank you for listening. We look forward to having you next time.
All right. This is Amy.
And Melissa.
And we're the
Dyslexia Duo.
We'll see you next time. Bye. The Dyslexia Duo podcast hosts are Amy Rodenroth.
Melissa Dean.
Our producer is Greg Rodenroth.
You can find us on Facebook at The Dyslexia Duo.
Email us any questions or comments at thedyslexiaduo@gmail.com.
Awareness is so important. Share this podcast with your friends,
Family,
and teachers.
thanks for joining us.
Bye.